Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu salam ala rasulillah. So, quick recap. We went back to the beginning of time, space, energy. We went back to, you could say, the Big Bang. Allah was there before that. Created the entire universe, right? And it's ever expanding, as it says in the Quran. He created heaven and hell and the angels and the jinn, and then eventually creates human beings. We have free will. He knew that although we'll be, killing and murdering and raping and doing all that there will definitely be people that will, although they have free will and they have choice and they can do whatever they want in life, they will choose to worship Allah, to obey Allah, to live a good life. They will be prophets and those who will follow the prophets. Allah knew this. That was His wisdom. And He loves us and He chose us as human beings and elevated us. But we have a test, right? Because some of us will end up in heaven, some of us will not. So we went through briefly, we skimmed over the stories of the prophets, and we reached Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? We were saying that he grew up the best character, the best reputation. But he's an orphan. He grew up with his grandfather and then uncle as his protection, but didn't have much in terms of money. And at a young age, he marries Khadija, radiallahu anha, who was one of the top CEOs of Mecca. She was a Fortune 500 company. She owns it, manages it. She hires him because she hears he's honest and trustworthy. Other people that are rich, they didn't have the character, the ethics, the morals, so she was not impressed. She was impressed with his character. She hires him, basically tests him out. And of course, he's very competent in business. He works well with people. He brought back great profit, great returns, and didn't lie to her or cheat her, nor did he lie or cheat to anyone he worked with, etc. She ends up proposing to him indirectly. They get married. So he goes up in status in terms of money and prestige by being married to her, but continues doing what he loves to do and what he basically was created to do. He takes care of the poor and the homeless and the needy. And he tries his best to get his society to recognize that there's a better way to live life. He spends around 40 years old. He had spent some time going up to Cave Halaqah. I mentioned this, meditating and reflecting on the fact that society, the rich oppress the poor, and men abuse women, and worshiping idols that they create with their own hands, and then they sell these idols. So it's really about money. It's not even about God or salvation or tawbah or repentance or doing good. It's a false fabricated religion, and it's nonsense. He's reflecting on this.
Abdullah, I think you need to unmute that one. Your voice.
You're saying you can't hear me, or what are you saying? You can hear me though, right? Because my phone is muted, but my computer is not muted. You can hear me or no? If you're upon the fitrah, if you are, we all are born upon the fitrah, born with our nature of being pure, not knowing everything. We're not born with knowledge that you have to acquire and learn, but you're born with a basic sense of morality, basic sense of truth and justice, a sense of longing to you want to connect to something bigger than you. You want to worship. Basically, it's in our nature as human beings to worship. So we're born upon this, and the Prophet tells us that everyone's born upon the fitrah, but because of parents and environment and upbringing, people go towards Christianity, Judaism, etc., etc. But they're all basically Muslims in a sense, and submitting their will to Allah, or wanting at least to worship Allah, worship the Creator. That's natural. And of course, if you grow up and then you start drinking and smoking and partying, if you start going to let's say another religion's temple or church or so on, and listening to other beliefs and stuff, you might go off into different paths. But the fitrah itself is pure. So Prophet is stayed away from all this. He never worshipped an idol in his life, although he wasn't he didn't know about Allah yet, he didn't know about Islam yet. Since he's upon the fitrah, although he's 40. He knows that there's something bigger and better, and that there's something wrong. He can feel it, right? He's meditating in the cave, and one day Allah sends Jibreel alayhi salam. When he's 40 years old, Allah sends Jibreel alayhi salam to him, who was the angel that was sent to all the prophets, and he came to tell him that you are a messenger of God. Basically, read in the name of your Lord. And he's like, I can't read, and he squeezes him tightly so he can barely breathe, and he's scared. He runs back down the mountain, goes to his wife, and he's shivering and cold and kind of panicking. He's like, he doesn't know if he's been possessed. He doesn't know if he's imagining things. He doesn't know what's going on. And Khadija tells him the beautiful words of, you're never going to be, left alone. You would never be humiliated in this sense. You would never be possessed or, no evil could really hurt you. You always take care of the poor and the homeless and needy. You're a good man, basically. I believe in you, which is amazing. She introduces him to a relative of hers called Waraq ibn Nawfal, who was among the very few, I don't know if you guys remember I was mentioning, there's very few people in Mecca before Prophet Muhammad starts preaching that were rejecting the idols. They didn't worship idols. I think Abu Bakr and Uthman and Affan, among the top 2 companions, they're number 1 and 3, they never worshipped any idols, and I don't think they either drank or smoked or anything. They recognized kind of the nonsense of their society, although it's very tough to see it. When you're in a society, it's hard to see that the majority can be wrong. or the vast majority. But these two did not. But also there was maybe one or two other people that didn't end up becoming Muslim and like these companions, but they kind of older than the Prophet. They recognized that something was wrong. One of them was this man, Waraq ibn Nawfal, and he was reading the other scriptures. He knew about Ibrahim and he knew about the Kaaba was, supposed to be a spot to worship the Creator, to unite humanity, not to worship idols. So he was an older person. Khadija knew that he had been, researching the other scriptures and so on. So she brings her husband, Muhammad to her cousin or uncle or so on. Waraq ibn Nawfal, she brings him. The Prophet tells him, like, yo, I was in a cave in this Mecca. He's like, oh, this is the same, angel that was sent to all the prophets. This is Jibreel. He's coming to tell you you're a messenger. He's like, oh, a messenger? He's like, yeah, you're a messenger. So he, even Prophet technically believed in the message. Waraq ibn Nawfal believed. And Khadija, she believed as well. When she knew what was going on, this dialogue, she recognized and she wasn't surprised that her husband was a prophet. Amazing. Anyway, so he tells him, he's like, yes, you're a prophet. And guess what? He's like, man, I'm old. He's been researching his whole life to find out the truth and what's going on. He read the scriptures and so on. Now he's like 70, 80. The Prophet was like 40. He's like, man, I wish I could have been like, young and fit and healthy. I can support you when your people throw you out. He's like, when my people throw me out. He's like, yeah. It's like, when you start preaching, you're a prophet. He's like, no one ever came before you started preaching what you're about to preach. Your people are going to throw you out. Like, that's just, it comes in the territory. This is how it works. Like, you're going to tell people to worship God. And of course it happens. They end up wanting to kill him. They abuse him, insult him, criticize him. They want to throw him out. He's like, amazing. He's like, they're gonna throw me out because he's thinking, yo, like everyone loves me. Like I'm in society, I love them and they love me. Like I'm part of this community. I've been, he has like the best lineage. Like his dad and his grandfather was the top guy in Arabia. Like he was the one who united all the tribes. When they generally they're not united. They're very tribalistic. They're always fighting. And there's no like king or president or every tribe has like their leaders and they get together and they sometimes agree and disagree. But he had like kind of been the unofficial leader of all of Quraysh, all of Mecca, which means Arabia. And that was Prophet's grandfather. So everyone knows that he's the son of or the grandson of Abdul Muttalib. So he's like, they're gonna throw me out. He's like, yeah, when you start preaching what you're gonna preach, they're gonna throw you out. He's like, I wish I could have been young and fit and to actually be able to support you and actually be able to like be on your side because I believe in you. But soon afterwards he passes away, because he was old. But that's Allah's plan. So he starts, and then, like we said, among the next two of the revelations comes down to him was, Ya ayyuhal mudaththir qum fa'anzir. All you who's wrapped up in your, at home shivering and so on, arise and warn. Go and tell the people, tell them about Allah and the Day of Judgment, tell them about prophethood, tell them about the book, tell them about the Quran, tell them about the message, tell them about heaven and hell, tell them not to worship idols. So he starts with his inner circle. He tells Abu Bakr, his best friend, he accepts Islam right away. He doesn't even hesitate or nothing. He accepts right away and he goes and starts bringing other people. And among the people that's Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who is the best of all the Muslims in the Ummah, after the Prophets, is Abu Bakr. He's the best of all the non-Prophets, basically. Among the people that he brings to Islam early on are like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A number of those were the top 10 companions. There's a hadith of 10 companions that are promised Jannah, even in their lifetimes. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, etc. A number of other people, right? Abu Bakr himself, who's number one, he brings a bunch of them to Islam. So think about like, he's a heavyweight, he's a champion, mashallah. So think of the good deeds, right? If you're someone who does a lot of good deeds, then the people who teach you and mentor you and benefit you, like they get the good deeds as well. It's like a chain. And it goes back to the Prophet ﷺ, of course. So Abu Bakr being number 2 from the Prophet ﷺ, but he goes and brings up a number of people to Islam. So like, if you play video games and you're trying to get like as many points as possible, you're trying to go up in prestige and levels, you want all the badges, you want all the skins, you want all the, So real life is similar. It's just that if you're playing video games all day, you're not really getting any of the good deeds in life. So nothing wrong with video games and hobbies like that. Nothing wrong with them in and of themselves. But is it the best use of your time? No. It's like a neutral. Put it at 0. It's not negative. There's alcohol, drugs. Put that at -5, -10, -15. Depends on how bad what you're doing is and how bad the environment is. But then there's like video games and other things that are at 0. Then there's sports, which is, is it as good as praying and fasting and telling people about Islam? No, but it's far better than video games and others. It's good for your health. And actually, it's a good thing. We don't have to be overly idealistic. Like, actually, more realistically, you want a lifestyle that's that is well-rounded. You want to be, you want to have a good chunk of your time be involved in sports and physical activity for sure. Especially if you can take that time away from video games. I know my audience. If you can take some time from video games and play sports instead, that'd be great. If you can take a little bit of that time and also talk to some of your classmates, co-workers, friends, neighbors, cousins about Salah, if they're Muslim, about Islam in general, if they're non-Muslim, that would be great. But going back, but Abu Bakr brings a number of people to Islam, and it tells you like if you're ambitious and if you really want the good deeds, you want to influence other people. People invest in like land and property. People build masajid, which is amazing. People do a lot of things. They donate to a lot of charities. But really, the game like if you want to like next level, you want to maximize your life, and we only have a few days to live really. If you want to give it your 110%, you try to influence other people. You try to bring other people. You want to try to guide other people with Allah's permission, of course. We can't guide anybody. We can't even guide ourselves. But you try to help and support and motivate and inspire and remind other people, because then they can bring other people. They can build masajid. They can donate to charities, etc. etc. Makes sense? It's a pyramid. So Abu Bakr is close to the top of that pyramid, mashallah. So he is one of the earliest people to convert. Ali ibn Abi Talib, who's number 4 of the companions, in rank and in leadership. He leads after the Prophet passes away. Abu Bakr, Ali leads. He's young. He's like 8, 9, 10 at this time. And he was basically the adopted son of the Prophet in a sense. He's his cousin, but nephew in terms of like age, kind of like the relationship was kind of more like the Prophet is his uncle, because he's like 10 and he's like 40. But basically he's his adopted son because he is the son of Prophet's uncle who is protecting him and taking care of him, Abdul Muttalib, brother of his father. But he had like 10 kids or more, and he's also not among the richer uncles, like he's among kind of the poor uncles. And he took care of the Prophet. So the Prophet grew up, and now he's married to Khadija, and he has money, and he has a nice house and all that. He takes Ali, Ibn Talib, who's one of the kids of Abdul Muttalib, he takes him and basically adopts him and raises him as saying thank you to his uncle, saying like, okay, you have a bunch of kids, take care of them. I'll take care of Ali, and I'll raise him up, and to kind of pay you back for you taking care of me. And because he has the money, he's able to. So he raised up Ali in his own household. So Ali has basically he never worshipped an idol, never drank, never smoked. And he believes in the Prophet right away, right? Prophet says, I'm a messenger, he believes him. Abu Bakr is the first of like the basically adult men to believe. Zayd, who's also an adopted son of the Prophet, he has his own story. I guess we should tell it, because he's one of the important figures in the Seerah for sure. Zayd ibn Haritha, who used to be called Zayd ibn Muhammad, because he was basically adopted son of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People thought that he's actually the son of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A lot of people didn't realize. The story was that he was caught in slavery or something, or he was like captured in war or something. Some tribal war between like Arabs and some other non-Arab group, like East African group or something. He was caught into slavery, I think. He was captured. He was sent to Mecca, and he was basically bought by people and so on. Something along those lines. The Prophet buys him, basically, and frees him and adopts him. So he becomes his son, and he's a servant. He takes care of him, but he's his son. So he lives with him, and he's amazing. And he's there whenever revelation is revealed, he's there. He's one of the people who's part of his core group. And he goes and he shares the message with everybody. Everyone thinks he's Muhammad's son, basically, but he's not his actual biological son, Him and Khadija basically take care of him and raise him up. So he's older than Ali, so he's like the older brother. Ali's the younger brother. And again, none of them are his biological sons, but he raises them up and he takes care of them, right? And they're both amazing. They both have amazing roles in the Seerah. Ali ibn Talib is like the warrior, he fights in the battles, and later on he becomes a leader, Khalifa of the Muslims, and he's a judge, and he's a scholar, because he learned throughout his life, and he's a warrior, he's by his nature. And Zayd ibn Haritha, he would have been, people said he would have been the leader after Muhammad passed away, even before Abu Bakr or Umar. He would have been the leader among all of them, except the fact that he passed away. He doesn't live till after Muslim dies, because he dies towards the end in one of the battles. But he's a warrior. And his son, Usama ibn Zayd, who also grows up under the Prophet's like umbrella, kind of. Usama ibn Zayd, he was like 16 years old. It's a story you guys might have heard a lot of times in your YM groups, MENA groups, and these youth groups. When people want to motivate young Muslims, what do they say? Today you guys are playing video games all day, but back in the day, 16-year-olds used to lead armies. You must have heard that at some point, right? Did anybody of your dad or uncles or cousins or anybody in your masjid, any of your sheikhs or imams, youth directors ever told you a story of a 16-year-old leading an army? That's Usama ibn Zayd. Now, throughout Islamic history, there's a number of figures that did that. By the time of the Prophet, or it was actually soon after the Prophet, it was Usama ibn Zayd. That's the son of Zayd ibn Haritha, who used to be called Zayd ibn Muhammad, who was the adopted son of Muhammad. He grew up in his household. Anyways, so among the first people to accept the Prophet as a prophet, Khadija, his wife, Waraq ibn Nawfal, but he passes away. Abu Bakr is his best friend, and he's among the older, like he's around the same age. Maybe he's 40 and he's 38. And he sticks with him throughout the whole Seerah. And you know Abu Bakr, we're gonna talk about him. He has his role. And he's the first leader after Prophet ﷺ for like a year and a half, and then he passes away. And then it's Umar al-Khattab, and then Uthman, and then Ali. And Abu Bakr brings a lot of people to Islam. And then Ali and Zayd, they grow up in the Prophet's household, they become Muslim. So that's like the inner group. And then Prophet ﷺ, what he starts doing is, it's like circle by circle, right? He wants to call his family. Then his extend his cousins and uncles to Islam, his whole tribe, then all of Quraysh, then the other cities, then Arabia, then the world, right? You go step by step. He wants to tell, he knows that this message is for the world, right? This is the deen, this is the life, this is the faith and the lifestyle that Allah, our creator, chose for humanity. So Islam is for everybody, and he's the last of all the messengers. So he's got to tell the whole world, or at least tell people to tell the whole world. But he does it step by step, outer circles, right? So he tells, so he's told Abu Bakr, they all accept. His inner group, they all believe in him because they know him up close, they know he's a good guy. Then he needs to tell other people, right? So he's going to start with his family, extended family. So what he does is, he starts having invitations, right? Hazumas, what do you guys call them? Da'wats, right? If you're Pakistani, Indian, Bangladesh, I think the term is da'wats. I don't know what you guys use. You guys are free to share with me if you're in the Indonesian community. what do you guys call it when you have like, like let's say one of your dads or moms invites their friends over for like dinner, for a meal. Like you got like extended families that come together and they have like, it's an invitation to, socialize and eat together. By the way, Arabs call it azuma. Desis call it da'wat, from like da'wah, from dua, like to call, you're inviting. So let me know what you guys call it. But anyways, he does that. He invites like say 40, 50 so of like, it's like his uncles, cousins, extended family, but like his family, part of his tribe. He calls them and they're eating, right? And he gets food for them and they're all eating, which is kind of, this is the way to bring people together. They're eating. And then he says, guys, the reason I called you here today, I wanted to let you know that, you believe me, right? You trust me. You love me. I'm part of your family. Like, yeah, you're the best. You're the best. You're awesome. Well, I wanted to let you know that there's only one God. The rest is worshiping idols. There's a heaven and a hell. There's judgment. I was sent as a messenger, so you need to, accept me and follow me. I was sent by Allah. And then Abu Jahl is like, that's what you called us here for. You called us to eat. You're here to tell us this nonsense. Man, forget you, whatever. And it's his uncle, and he's older than him. And also doesn't have his dad. He's an orphan. So this is technically like his, kind of supposed to be like a dad figure. I mean, Abu Talib is his main, father figure. But this is his brother. That's the one who's his guardian's brother, his dad's brother. His dad passed away. So his uncle's supposed to be on his side. He's supposed to be one of his main supporters. And the whole world goes against the Prophet. His uncle's supposed to, defend him and protect him. But, he ends up becoming one of his worst enemies. He's like, this is why you call. He's like, screw you, basically. Sorry for bad language, but he uses bad, filthy language. He's like, forget you. This is why you call this. And he gets up and leaves. And so people are like, He does that another time. He brings people together, guys. On the messenger sauna. And they're like, oh yeah, well, who's following you? You're a joke. Yeah, you got no followers. You're telling about God. You're crazy. You're insane. They say all sorts of stuff, right? I remember Talib at that time was like 10 years old, young guy. He's already been Muslim for a while now, for like some months or a year or so. And in the first phase, Ali stands up and he's speaking to his uncle, by the way, right? This is like his dad's brother, his aham. In Arab culture, that's really, really tough to do, if not impossible. He stands up and he says, he's like, well, I follow the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So they had already been laughing at the Messenger and making fun of him. Ali stands up and he's 10 years old. And Prophet is 40. And this guy he's speaking to is like 50, 60, 70, right? His uncle. And he's like, who follows you anyway? You're nonsense. You're just speaking here and no one's going to listen to you. This is nonsense. Ali stands up. He's like, I follow the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I'm a Muslim. I believe. And then they start laughing even more. Like, this guy's following you. You have a kid following you. Good job. Congrats. Oh, wow. Ooh, very impressed. That's what they do. Ali is like serious about this. He's like, I'm following. And guess what? It's easy to say that. It's words. No. But Ali thought it from 10 to when he passes away at 60 or so. The next 20, 30, 40 years at least. He's dedicated his whole life to the mission. He supports him at every turn. He's there at every moment. He's fighting in every battle. He's the man. So yeah, and Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab and some of these worst people, they have a very bad ending. So Ali thought it was a great life, and these guys have a horrible life. And they chose to be the enemies of the Prophet when they could have supported him. There's his cousins and uncles and relatives of his. But anyway, this is how it goes. So he tells people, a couple of people maybe from his tribe accept Islam, but a lot of them don't, especially those who are older. Generally, the younger people accept, and the older people, they reject. Step by step. One day he goes and he stands on a hill, and he kind of tells everybody in Quraysh, like his whole city, right? Step by step. He tells the city, listen, guys, gather up. I have a message for you. It's very important. And the alarm that he sends out is basically the same alarm as like an army coming. Like it's like no danger, like red flag, red alert. So he goes red alert in Mecca. So everyone gathers. And that Muhammad is a 40-year-old. He's someone they trust and he's mature and responsible. He would not it wouldn't be a false alarm. He's like red alert. They all gather up and he stands on a hill. He's like, my tribe, my people. This is Quraysh, not just the Hashmi tribe, not just the tribe of Banu Hashim, his extended family. There's multiple, like 10 tribes. They're very tribalistic society. They all come. And he stands up on the hill and he says, he looks the other way, he can kind of see the desert. They can't, right? They're standing here, he's up. He's like, if I was to tell you right now there's an army coming to fight your city, would you believe me? They're like, absolutely. You've never lied to us ever. We believe you. We'd be up in arms. We trust you. If you say there's an army already. He says, so you believe me? You trust me? Yes. He's like, well, I want to tell you something even more dangerous than an army coming to fight you. He said, it's more serious than this. He said, there's a day of judgment. There's heaven. There's hell. There's only one God. You can be accountable for your deeds and sins. Remember, they don't believe in an afterlife. They thought once they're dead, it's all done. So they should just chill, enjoy yourself in this life. Who cares? He's like, no, you're going to die. You're going to be brought back alive. And I'm a prophet, I'm sent by God. You have to believe in Allah. You got to reject these idols. These idols, you're making them yourselves. They're not true. It's false. Stop believing and stop misbelieving and stop disbelieving and stop misguiding others. And then Abu Jahl again, Abu Lahab, his own uncle, directly his uncle, his dad's brother. He stands up and says, again, he's always like the one to like ruin the gathering. He's like, this is why you gathered us. This is my nephew. He's a He starts like cursing, insulting him. He's like, Tibbanak. He's like, damn you. He gives him like the middle finger kind of thing. So when other people see that his own uncle saying this to him, so it's like, man, so the people just walk away and they're just like, man, whatever. Like, like they love this guy, Prophet Muhammad, but his own uncle saying, screw you, how dare you say this stuff and nonsense. So they're kind of like, it's like an internal family thing. It looks really bad. And Abu Lahab, he knows this. He knows that he's ruining it for his nephew, but that's his goal, right? He doesn't want him to have any kind of prestige or power. He doesn't want him to lead the community in a different direction. He doesn't want anyone to upset the social political order that he is, benefiting from, and the money he's benefiting from selling the idols. So he's like, damn you, screw you, forget you. And then Allah says in the Quran what? A surah that pretty much every Muslim kid around the world has memorized. One second, someone's joining the group. He said, Tabban lak, damn you, screw you, basically giving the middle finger, right? And Allah says, basically he responds back to him. He responds the curse back to him. Like, you're saying what, you want to be kicked out of Allah's mercy? Well, Allah reveals in the Quran that you're kicked out of Allah's mercy. You're going to hell, basically, you and your wife. You guys are cut off. You guys are damned. You guys are out. You guys are cancelled. Cancel culture. You guys have an X. They're trying to put an X on the Prophet, but you have an X. So yeah, and it continues. Prophet continues to preach, and he goes around and he stands up on a stool, or gets people together like in front of the Kaaba, and he can speak to them. He's preaching, especially once a year when it's the Hajj season. They still believe in Hajj, by the way, these people. But they were worshiping at the Kaaba, and it was false gods, right? And they're dealing with money and all that, selling gods. People came from all over Arabia. All the different tribes came to Mecca. That's why Mecca had its prestige. They came from all over Arabia to worship the idols, right? Once a year. That was what they saw as Hajj, right? Which is started by Ibrahim a.s., but they corrupted it. They messed it up. But whenever they used to come from all over, especially the Prophet would get up, he started preaching to all the different tribes and telling them, listen, Allah sent me, I'm a messenger, etc. So Abu Lahab was among the people who would follow him around. Whenever he would go up someplace and stand in front of a crowd and say, listen, guys, he would follow him around, and he would say, this is my nephew, trust me, I know him, he's cuckoo, don't listen to him, loco, muy loco. He's insane, he's crazy, he's nonsense, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't listen to him, listen to me, trust me out. I got you. I'm one of the leaders of Mecca. I'm one of, you know me. You've been coming to worship in our city for decades, and trust me, you guys crazy. He's our nephew. Just don't listen to him. The Prophet gets up, he goes to someone else. Listen, I'm a messenger. He comes in. He's like He just does whatever. Just be quiet, shush. Throw things at him. Throw tomatoes. Make fun of him. He did all this kind of stuff. So people are like confused and lost, and like it's his uncle saying he's crazy. He does sound crazy. No one else is talking about being a prophet. Like, we're in Arabia, we don't believe in prophets, So that's what he did. Prophet would ignore his uncle. He wouldn't say anything bad or anything to him. He'd just get up and go around and continue to preach, right? Some people would accept Islam sometimes. Sometimes Abu Lahab would tell other people, listen, guys, he would go to the edge of the city. Like, listen, you're coming. We have a crazy person in our city. I know you guys come here every year. Don't worry, we got you. We'll take care of you. We got you food and water. You can worship the gods. We got you with the best gods ever. But, this year we have a problem with this. He's my nephew. Trust me, I know him. He's crazy. He's insane. Don't listen to him. But what you can do is, whenever people listen to the things he says, it's like magic. He puts a spell on you and your family, and you and your wives will be separate. You and your kids will be separate. He destroys families through his magic. So if you want to protect your family and protect your mental health, basically, you should just clog your ears. Whenever you see him preaching, just close your ears. Don't listen to anything he says. Just close your ears and just walk away, because And what is he talking about? He's talking about the Quran. When the Prophet used to recite Quran, people, they were Arabs. They understood the language at a very high level. So as soon as they hear it, they knew from the message and from the eloquence and from the beauty of it, they knew this was the truth. So they accepted it, right? A lot of people would accept the message. So he wanted to make sure they didn't even listen to the Quran. And so he said it's like magic. It will destroy your family and so on. Which is like playing with the truth, Definitely playing with the truth. So a lot of people would walk into Mecca, they believe him, like, oh, okay, he said it, he's the leader of Mecca. So they'd put like cotton in their ears, or they'd close their ears, they walk around. And every once in a while, someone will be like, man, I want to hear this. They open up, they hear the Quran, they become Muslim. So others are closer. One time, one of the heads of one of the tribes outside of Mecca, like from the other like major tribes around Arabia, but not the tribe of Quraysh, the other major tribe. One of the tribes, the head, he came in, he heard this guy's like, yo, close your ears. Like, oh, okay, close the ears. Then he's like, he tells the story later because he becomes Muslim. He tells himself, he's like, man, I asked myself that day, I'm like, man, I'm the head of a tribe. Like, I can't listen to this stuff and decide for myself if it's true or not. Like, I don't have to close my ears. I'm not a kid. Or So he listened, heard the Quran, he knew it was the truth. He became Muslim. He went back and told his whole tribe, and the whole tribe became Muslim. So this is the story of early Mecca. Prophet Seerah, the biography of the Prophet, the life and mission and legacy of the Prophet, the teachings of the Prophet were divided into two categories, two chapters of his life, two main chapters, 23 years. So from 40 years old till 63, 23 years. The first 13 in Mecca, 10 in Medina. It's very important to distinguish because they're quite different, these phases. One of them, they're oppressed. They're under the Meccan authority, Meccan leadership, Meccan political structure, and they are abused and tortured. We're about to get to that, or we'll leave that inshallah for next time. But they get tortured and abused, insulted, ridiculed. Even the Prophet himself, although he's from the upper class in a sense, And so they can't abuse him too much, but they do abuse him and insult him and criticize him. And others, especially those who are enslaved, those who are servants, those who are poor, those who are not Arab, those who are from other tribes, weaker tribes, or from no tribes, or they're not Arabs, they were tortured, abused, killed. That's the majority of the story of early Mecca. Oppression and trying to do da'wah and try to tell people about Islam. And people become Muslim slowly, but their family members abuse them and torture them. And then eventually we come to it, but the Muslims will migrate to Medina. And those 10 years, although there's some battles and some warfare between them and Mecca and them and other tribes that unite to fight them, generally they're better off because they have a city, they have their own environment. They're able to enact their own system, their own laws, and continue to give da'wah to people all over Arabia, and people become Muslim from all over Arabia. So that's kind of like the summary of the Seerah. But yeah, so the Prophet continues to preach. Whenever people that join him, and the majority that join him are poor, needy, weaker of tribe, weaker physically as well, weaker social status, right? Not the people with the blue check marks, not the people with the 100 million followers on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, right? Not the celebrities and not the politicians in them. Those people, they rarely become Muslim. We'll talk about some of the stories next time. When somebody becomes Muslim, that's huge. Like Kyrie Irving became Muslim right before Ramadan, right? Stack 5, Steven Jackson, who won a basketball championship with the Spurs, San Antonio Spurs, whatever it is, 10, 15, 20 years ago. He became Muslim like 2-3 months ago. Kyrie Irving became Muslim like a few weeks ago. When people like that, blue check mark on Instagram, when people like that, celebrities, when they become Muslim, everyone was celebrating. But generally, the majority of people that became Muslim were poor, weak, and needy. And when they became Muslim, their own family members, their uncles, cousins, whatever, the heads of their tribes, or those who were their masters because they were enslaved under them, would torture, abuse them, even kill them. That was the story of Mecca. What do you guys think? I think we have 5 minutes Q&A. How do you guys feel about that? 5 minutes of Q&A, because this is a good place to stop, because next time, inshallah, we have another chapter in the story. If there's no Q&A, I can mention a few more points. I'll give you guys a chance to ask questions. You can type it up or you can ask it. While you guys do that, in this phase, where Prophet is, it's like people call it the secret da'wah. We don't have secrets in Islam. We want the message is for everybody. We can say private da'wah in a sense that people would give da'wah mainly to people they knew in person and they believed will most likely accept them. So they tell people about Islam, their brothers that they knew, their friends, others they knew that were kind of like in a troubled situation or they were unhappy with the current status quo. They would tell them about Islam. They're more likely to accept. Those who were poor, enslaved, and they'd rarely publicize it unless they were of status, and then they were generally abused. But in this phase of private da'wah, Prophet would speak publicly, but he was prestigious. Most people were not at his level, so they'd just tell people directly. And eventually later on, they'd be more public, and all of them would come out and say, "We're Muslim. Do what you want with us." And they torture and abuse them. But in this phase, there was a spot that was very important. The house of one of those who was early Muslims was Dar al-Arqam. Dar means the house of. Al-Arqam is one of the early companions, and his house was like a nice, larger house, so it can fit 10, 20 people, and it was like close to the Kaaba, so it has a good location, but also a place that the Quraysh would not expect. They would think that people would be hiding, or they're not hiding, but they would think that they would meet up with the Prophet in private. They were not publicizing the meeting place. They thought they would do it somewhere on the outside of the city, but they did it actually right in the middle of the city, so it kind of threw them off. But this place was the place where whenever the Quran was revealed, ayahs were revealed to Prophet, he'd go there and he they would learn it, teach it, they would teach each other. Someone becomes Muslim, they'd partner up with one of their buddies, they'd have like a buddy system, they would teach them what they know of Islam, they'd go out and teach people. When they had news they wanted to share, when there was a problem in Mecca they had to discuss, that was their meeting place, that's where they learned and taught and so on. Dar al-Arqam. So that was important. And I want to end here because next there's a few more stories that need their own time to talk about. The conversion of Umar al-Khattab, definitely a blue check mark. Everyone knows what I mean by blue check mark. If you're on Instagram or Facebook or some of these other social media platforms, a handful of people, like the people with big followings, they got a blue check mark from the platform. It's like celebrity status. So in that society, the top poets, warriors, the top leaders, etc., the richest people, they had blue status, right? They had blue check marks. So Hamza, Ibn Abu Talib, and Umar al-Khattab were among the top people to convert, check marks in that phase in Mecca. In Medina, a number of other bigger people convert. And at the end of the Prophet's life, pretty much everyone in Arabia converted, even the upper. After the top, Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, all of them, they get killed. The generation after them, the majority of them become Muslim. Questions, comments, concerns? Something I went over too fast, you want me to go back and recap? Something that you didn't understand, or something that you've always wondered about the Seerah? I don't know all the answers. I will say I don't know if I don't know, but something to discuss. We have a few minutes. Anyway, we have actually a minute, because in a minute the Zoom link will end, inshallah. Theo, any announcements you want to make, or questions, comments, concerns, or a discussion point, or a lesson you want to bring up, or anything about the Seerah you want to mention? You know your community better than I do. Theo or the Ustad Pohan.
Yes.
We have exactly 1 minute, and then it's going to kick us out.
Yeah, 1 more minute. Yeah.
Yeah, do you want anything you want to say? Any comment, question, concern, any advice for your community? Anything about the Seerah you find interesting?
Well, basically, we really appreciate for your support for our program, and may Allah support you to the best for that one, give you health and the knowledge.
Ameen.
Can be more beneficial to the others. So, looking forward to seeing you again probably next week. I think it will be last week, I believe, right?
At your service, inshallah. It's an honor. I'll do my best. May Allah ameen to you and your community as well and your families. May Allah bless you all with the best Ramadan ever. It's the last 10 days and the last 10 nights, right? Starting today, I think it's the last 10 days. Let's maximize it. Let's give it our best, inshallah. And let's pray for each other. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Abdullah.